on the 5 conditions for collective impact, because Finn described it earlier very eloquently, but it might just be helpful for you to have the visual if this is how your memory tends to work better. So this is the 5 conditions for how do we help people to work collectively better, and if we do that, do we achieve more impact? So basically, together, if they are working together, are they measuring the same things so that they know whether they're having any impact on what they agreed to work on together? Are they actually helping each other, or is what they're doing actually hindering progress? Continuous communication, because quite often people will say that they're going to work together and then suddenly a year's gone by. And then finally, backbone organisation has just been evidenced over and over and over again as being so important to make the other 4 things happen. In very, very simple language, sorry Ben. Okay, so finally we're moving on to the impact study and the key findings. So I won't spend too long on the methodology, but essentially we're talking about the emerging findings here. So like I've said, it's about taking people on a journey. So it made sense for us to talk to those people about their journey and find out what's happened for them. Has it had any impact on what they think about as leadership, their skills as leaders, their competence as a leader, but also their confidence as a leader, but also that other people think it's had any impact on them, because like I said, cognitive bias is a thing and we all think we're very good at what we do. So we not only spoke to some of the leaders on the programme, but we spoke to people that they work with so that they could reflect on, you've worked with this person for a couple of years now, have you seen any changes in them whilst they've been going through this programme? So we spoke to 13 people that have gone through the leadership programme, and for each person we spoke to 2 people that they work with. So all of the findings that I'm going to talk you through now are based on themes that came through from all of those people. If there was a leader that said, I'm now brilliant at influencing and negotiating, but there was no evidence of that in the interviews with the collaborators, it didn't make it into the report. So there was some robustness there about trying to triangulate evidence. Okay. It's difficult to describe how some of this works, which is why we've got some case studies, so I might leave that one for them. Okay, so second one, realising your own sense manager in a specific organisation. Let's take the police for example. And so my sense of authority and influence over violence prevention was over the 7 people that I manage in my team. But actually what I've come away with now is violence prevention is a huge ambition. It's not a project in my specific role. And actually, if I think the prisons aren't doing a good enough job, I can challenge that. But what I need to do is be sensitive about it. I need to understand what's going on in our prison system, and I need to think about how can I support and develop thinking and change. So instead of thinking about just my role, my team, my individuals that I can manage and can specifically manage their action plans, I'm starting to think about how do I use my authority and my power, which might well just be that I'm really good at thinking about things and I want to help other people to think about things. I can do that, I have the mandate for it. And this was specifically very strong for people working in civil society, people in volunteering roles that are out there with individuals on the ground in frontline roles, thinking, oh, actually, I can challenge the system here. It doesn't matter that I'm not employed by one of them. Which links nicely onto clarity of personal ambition. It just oozed out of everybody that was on the programme that they have a real deep personal ambition here to reduce violence, particularly around gender-based violence, particularly about tackling the normalisation of violence. And I think going through the programme helped people to think, I can actually make a difference here. And then once you empower people to, I can do something, they will throw energy and enthusiasm and time and commitment into it. And that just further develops them as an individual and what their contribution can be. The fourth theme was around sensitivity to other people and other contexts, which is really important if you want to be effective in working collectively and with other people. You need to be able to understand the different challenges that other people are facing and how to interact with people and how to get the truth out of people, because quite often we will only have half an hour or an hour to talk to somebody about what they're achieving in their role or how we might be able to work together. And it takes quite a lot of nuance in the way that you communicate with somebody to get them to really open up beyond the, this is my learned narrative about what I do in my policing role that is contributing to violence prevention, to these are the things that are really important, and these are the things that are really difficult, and I need to tell you how difficult it is to work with my boss who doesn't have the same views as me, and how I think we should be doing things differently. Once people are able to open up about some of that, they're much more likely to help you want to achieve, and that's where you start to pull resources together. And then finally, improved decision making and efficacy. And this is really interesting because it came from being able to work with other people. So it seems like decision making seems like something maybe you're either good at or you're not, but actually, you know, it's based on the information that you have in front of yourself, and it's based on your ability to think critically. And often we can't think critically where we already have a bias towards I can't achieve X without more money, more people, or more time. Once you realise that that's a narrative that you've created, and there are several different routes and opportunities and ways that you can achieve your goal, your ability to make decisions about what is an opportunity or how do I tackle this blocker changes completely. And this was evident in just every single interview that we had, that people were working differently and achieving more, so they're just generally more efficient and effective human beings in general, but also others. Just some of the specific examples, because I'm conscious that I'm talking at quite a conceptual level, so feel free to wave at me or ask questions if you're thinking, make it more real, Laura. Some of what we saw in terms of the skills development that we were able to capture through the interviews, like I say, triangulated from the leaders and their collaborators, was about how people communicate and that they'd significantly improved the way that they communicate. And quite a lot of that was about being less aggressive, being less abrupt, and making less assumptions. Having more patience, that was through and through, both internally in your organisation but also working with other organisations. Being better at managing conflict and disputes. Most of us, again, are wired not to like conflict and to avoid it. And when we avoid conflict, it means that we're probably closing down some conversations. We're probably avoiding things that we don't really know how to resolve. We're probably not necessarily asking challenging questions. And this isn't suggesting that we create conflict, but we do have to create ripples, and there's ways of doing that that won't break down relationships because you know how to develop trust at the same time. Generally improve social skills, and also, again, it comes back to that fixed growth mindset. When you start to get out of your own ego and your own I need to make it really enables you to support other people, to empower them with their ideas, because when you start to think about how complex the violence problem is that we talked about earlier, you realise that you can't solve it on your own. So every time you see a light bulb of energy or enthusiasm from somebody, you have to jump on that and you have to help it to grow, and it doesn't need to be anything to do with you or necessarily what you're doing, and you might not necessarily know what it might become, but when people start to build each other up, you can achieve an awful lot more, and that involves well, the bullet points aren't there anymore. Accepting differences between people, just generally being able to deal with doing that, like we said, without creating conflict and developing trust, was a superb output for people. And then basically making changes to the wider violence reduction and peace building efforts across organisations. And some of the examples in the report will elaborate on that a bit more, but that's essentially about recognising that something that I do in my policing process might have a negative impact on your health process. So there would be a specific example there around accessing health after a sexual assault, for example, accessing healthcare. Police processes of you need to have a P3 form signed was a blocker to women and children in particular accessing health. And it wasn't until some people had that conversation and said, actually, we can change this process. And that makes a huge ripple effect. It's one process issue, but taking that out meant that more women and children were more likely to access healthcare and support. And once they have healthcare, they're then more likely to engage with other institutions, services and systems. So they're more likely to report to the police, and they're more likely to support other victims to go through that process. So I could get into a spiel about the potential ripple effects of that, but I'll move on to transformation of place. So just thinking back to that model, so we just talked about the transformation of the people going through the programme. Now we're looking at, so what did that actually mean in terms of place, and what did those individuals get to achieve? So essentially we boiled this down really to three themes. So it's about bridging the gaps in communication and relationships with communities, and that was some of the examples about distrust between communities and the police. But what really came through in the programme was that the other individuals around the table, so from education, from health, from prisons, from civil society, they want to improve the relationship between communities and the police and their relationships with communities. So everybody had a joint goal, and by pooling resources, you're much more likely to engage more effectively with communities. Secondly, it was about intersectoral working. And then overall, we just have this great title, just having a greater impact, because when agencies work together, they achieve more, which will be evident as I talk through the next couple of slides. Okay, so some of the specific examples that we were able to collect qualitative data for, and we suggest at the end of the report, let's start to develop some quantitative metrics around some of this. But essentially, we have more people reporting crime and information about crime and victimisation to the police, and not only directly to the police, but also through the community policing committees. So the growth of the community policing committee was huge throughout the PBLD programme. Not all of that can be attributed to the PBLD programme because there was a national move to support community policing committees, but one of the leaders of the CPCs was on the programme, and he was able to see, oh, it's all in my power how big this thing is, and it's also all in my power what it does. So nationally there's been this great idea, but I get to think about how this looks on the ground. So he created clusters so that there was much better engagement in slums, and he made a specialist role around gender violence prevention, so that there were volunteer members of the community that individuals could talk to about specific issues. there was a significant improvement in the way that all of the agencies were talking to people that had been affected by crime about court processes and what's needed. There was a lot of mistrust about court processes, the kinds of evidence that you need, where you get that evidence from, whether the decisions that are taken about what makes it through a court process to achieve justice, whether those decisions are based on the evidence that you've got or based on who you are, where you live, whether this is important to somebody. A lot of that was able to be broken down by mostly the community policing committees, but other agencies as well, talking about what is evidence and how do you create robust evidence. And by increasing community knowledge and understanding about what that is, people felt more empowered about, okay, so these are the things that are in my control if I want this justice process to go through. I appreciate there's an awful lot of other factors involved in that, but I can only say so much up here. Okay, significant improvement in public forums, not just the existence of public forums, but how they're run and who resources them. So this was about policing, health, education, coming together to say, we're trying to access women to talk about women's rights, their social rights. We're trying to access women with children so that we can start to unpack some of the challenges and normalisation around gender-based violence. We want to talk to them in terms of their rights, but we also want to talk to them about how they access healthcare, about how it is that they communicate with the police, about how they should expect that process to go. And so it made a lot of sense for those agencies to come together and do it together. It was simpler to organise, more people to run it, and it meant that people that wouldn't necessarily go to a police engagement workshop were more likely to go because there was a health aspect to it. So again, intersectoral working making a lot of sense. As evidenced by today, the local media coverage has been very important. As part of the programme, Patrick and others created dedicated lines of communication about particularly the normalisation of violence, but also the broader kind of violence prevention policies and programme. And being able to put that on social media, being able to engage a younger audience, and being able to do it in an open way that enables people to ask questions and to challenge was really effective at engaging more people in conversation about it. And it will take time, but those are the methods that we need to take where we want to shift people's thinking, because we're not going to be able to take everybody through a course that just envelopes their mind about how they think about things, but we can be putting information out. Working. Let's introduce Rob.
Hello, and good morning from Ireland. I just wanted to say a very quick few words. Sorry, I can't be at the launch of this very important study. But I guess I just wanted to say a few words about place-based development, and that we're really pleased. I'm really pleased that the study has shown what an impact this program has had. Place-based leadership development seeks to work with urban violence prevention to really have a significant impact on the way leaders see themselves, how they work with each other, and how they work across the system. I think Dr. Laura Knight's and her colleagues' study has really shown that this has been, that the 3-year program been particularly impactful over the past 3 to 4 years, and the pilots that in 2016. I just wanted to say that this work is not only being developed in Kenya and Uganda elsewhere. What we're doing can be replicated not only in Nakuru but also across the wider Kenya. I'm really passionate and excited about this. I'm really excited about the opportunity this brings, actually really change and develop me. And I'll end by saying that I think I've massively learned from working with Dignity and Midrift Human Rights Network, and across the whole program, because I think I've, rather than just become a doctor of leadership development, I'm more like a doctor of human development. So there's a time difference here, so I'm going to have to go soon and actually wake my children up for school. So I just wanted to say, fantastic the launch has happened. Sorry I can't be there, but I am there in spirit. And I'd really like to wish you good luck with the launch and also with the rest of the event. Thank you and have a brilliant time, and hope to see you all in Kenya very soon. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so just to wrap up where I was, just talking about the transformation of place, so what those individuals have achieved because of working together. So our policing colleagues that were on the programme were talking about mediation being a very useful tool in de-escalating conflict, and that going through the personal development of all of the skills that are associated with mediation actually meant that they recognised that there were so many opportunities to use it, and opportunities to use it to challenge people about their perceptions around the normalisation of violence, even when it wasn't a violent incident itself. So being able to share those skills much more broadly was found to be basically not only impactful for policing, but also for developing those people that they're working with, their trust both in policing and the way that justice works. Because when you're able to talk professionally and in a way that nudges people's thinking, they start to think about you differently as an organisation, and that will have an impact on the way that they think about many different institutions. Okay, so final slide on this one then. This was just a couple of the specific examples, and I've referenced a couple of them. But in terms of intersectoral working, so those people that were around the table on the modules, what did they actually do together when they were sent off to go and achieve without any additional resource? So a couple of examples that are explained in the report. So it's police and hospitals working together, like I said earlier, about the healthcare access after sexual assaults. Basically increasing the speed that victims can access healthcare, and then also improving their trust in the process and likelihood of reporting information and intelligence. Local businesses being influenced and worked with very successfully to invest their own money in the development and restoration of buildings. So there was a child protection unit that was renovated so that services that could be provided in a way that enabled some confidentiality and some privacy to the individuals that were reporting to the police, but also working with national government to draw funds down to build a whole new police station, and there's some lovely pictures in the report. Agencies coming together to deliver training and community engagement and forums. Again, it's just super efficient, and they were able to maximise their reach across communities. And then some specifics around processes becoming much more efficient. So the process of getting mental health assessments done, both for victims and perpetrators going through justice processes, was sped up. And the way that samples of DNA were being arranged and transported, those individuals, just by working together and thinking through some of the problems, were able to speed up those processes. Okay, so case studies are in the report. I encourage you to read that because we don't have time to talk through it now. A couple of case studies being talked about after I finish. These give a good structure to thinking about the way that we think about impact. So each one takes you through what was the challenge that was being addressed, what was the action that was taken, what was the role of place-based leadership development in that, and then what was the impact. So it helps you to think through how does this actually work in practice. At the end of the report, so it gives you these high-level measures of impact, the descriptions about how we know that, and then the types of metrics and quantitative data that we might choose to collect as we go forward, because this is a level of impact that we're talking about after a few months, we want to be looking at what's the impact of this after a few years. So this is about, we've managed to increase community engagement, so that public involvement is leading to better trust with government agencies, law enforcement, civil society and so on. So how might we be able to measure that in different ways? By increasing trust and communication, particularly between those that are affected by violence and policing and other institutions, we've managed to improve the response of policing because they're understanding violence in different ways, just coming back to the root causes of violence and being sensitive to different people and contexts. The improved development of cases of victimisation going through the court process, so again this comes back to thinking about efficiency and trust in justice processes, and improved awareness and a sense of connection really between people living in communities and county and national government, which is probably one of the most unexpected. Build a sense of professionalism and confidence in a relationship with an institution. It can spread to other institutions. So I'm being given the nod, so I'm just in 1 minute on recommendations. There's a number of recommendations shared at the end of the report, and mostly this is about, we do need to get better at collecting data in order to evidence some of what we've talked about here in different ways and over a longer period of time. As part of that, we do need to have some common indicators. There's an awful lot of different things that we could be measuring, but that could get very complex, messy and long. So if we could agree with everybody actually what is it that we want to measure here that we can all take collective responsibility for. We recommend that facilitator workshops are developed so that those people that have already been trained in PDLD are able to share that learning and skills in different ways with the people that they work with, so you're essentially just spreading the reach of that learning. And then there's a couple of ideas here really about, we've worked in Nakuru and Naivasha. There's lots of relationships between people that work and live in those areas with other areas in Kenya. So there's ways that we could talk about twinning different municipalities, but also development of further afield, so further south-south collaborations around what's been done here and learning really about that process and how it could be implemented and delivered in other areas. And then finally we talk about place-based collective impact, because we just can't hammer home enough the message that this has to be collective. And when you think about collective impact, you are talking about a level of scale and a level of quality that is much more likely to achieve the ambitions and the goals that you're looking for. So I think that brings my session to an end. My contact details are here, but also I'm here all day, so please do come and talk to me, and I hope that you read the report, and feel free to come and ask me very challenging questions, and I will use a growth mindset when I reflect on them. Thank you.
For those who have arrived, karibu sana, Kawive, Kajuli, some of our panelists, karibu sana. You are not recognized your name, you are more important. If you recognize now, you recognize later. We are being pressed with time because we have 10 o'clock tea. But I think we need to proceed. Maybe at this juncture we need to hear from the people, the lived experience. They have been in the PPLD. They have managed to take that particular information and knowledge, work with the people, and there are results that can be seen. Karibu sana Tom Kagu, former member of I4, karibu sana. I know there's traffic. German is in town. So, who is going to start? Selina? Yeah. Selina works with the culture and gender Nakuru County, and she wants to tell us practically, from knowledge to practice, what is obtaining. Karibu sana.
I work for county government of Nakuru, and I'm glad to confirm that the 3-year baby has produced. Yeah, and it is unusual to have a 3-year-old who is already very productive. Okay, I'll need to use my presentation. I don't know who is working on it. Yeah, so I'm a product of the place-based leadership development program, and I would wish to say that it has really worked for us in Nakuru County and also the Department of Gender. Before I attended or did the training, within the department, we had issues with on how we did have a guiding document on how to implement or how to a document that would guide us, and we did not have a guiding document that would help us in the implementation of our programs and projects as a county government. I realized as a person, as an individual, I was at a position to influence change within the county government to be able to come up with a guiding or guidelines to support what we were doing as a county. And the starting point, how I started, after I got the training, I went back to my office and had a discussion with my bosses and my colleagues. Yeah. So the first person that I influenced were in my immediate office mates, my bosses and my colleagues. And I told them I think I have an idea of how we can be able to do this. Because a study had been done by our partner that indicated that we had gender-based violence in Nakuru County. And also an analysis had been done that showed that we didn't have, or we had gender inequalities in the county. But in terms of implementing or working on this was a challenge because we didn't have a guideline on how to be able to mobilize resources and even develop programs that would be able to support that. So we realized we could not be able to work on the, we didn't have an enabling environment for people within the county to access their rights. And so we thought, how are we going to go about it? If we have a whole lot of population that is not involved in development, then we wouldn't have sustainable development. Then we thought, what we needed was a gender policy. And so how we started working on development of a gender policy, after influencing my office, we were able to get out and influence other partners and stakeholders within the county. And we got together, we brought together different stakeholders from the national government, the county government, the NGOs or the civil society organizations within the county, faith-based organizations, and we had a conversation through a workshop that we had. We had an engagement, and we gave out, we were able to share with them the challenges that we were going through as a department on the inability for us to do what we were expected to do, or even to implement our programs, since we were not guided. We didn't have a guideline. And as we are aware that gender is an area that is not very well funded. When it comes to resource distribution, even within the county where I work, you know, gender is software, and people would rather have roads, they would rather have water, they would rather have electricity, rather than talking about this gender or women as it is misconceived. So we had a discussion with partners and stakeholders in a forum and said we really needed their support to be able to have a policy for the county that would guide the way we do things within the county. We also had an issue with gender-based violence, because from the report, there was a field study that was done by Midrift and showed the status of gender-based violence within the county. And how can we work on this unless someone is talking about it, or there is a guideline on how to be able to resource even for finances? So this training that I had gone through really built my capacity, and I was able to influence in terms of my office and also the community and other stakeholders. We did sensitization forums, we did community engagements, and out of these, we had members of this particular team attending budget making processes, whereby the members of the community are expected to attend to be part of the budget public participation forums, and we had members of this particular group making proposals even for the establishment of a gender-based violence rescue center in Nakuru County. And out of these engagements, we were able to be allocated funds as a department in the year 2018-2019, and again 2019-2020 for the establishment of a GBV rescue center within Nakuru County. And this was as an outcome of what we were able to do because of this training. So currently we are working on that. We were also able to, within this conversation again, we had partners in our engagements who agreed to support the process of developing a gender policy for the county. Currently we are on it. We have had several engagements with different stakeholders, and we have partners who have already given their resources, Midrift being one of them, Center for Enhancing Democracy being another partner, and Roots Kenya, who are supporting the development of a gender policy for Nakuru County. So this is a process that has really brought as a department, me as an individual, and now we are going out to the community to have everyone on board to do in a better way. So I can for sure say the 3-year-old baby is really is really doing wonders within Nakuru County. I also wish to invite those of us who are not yet part of us. I'm sure I've influenced you in some way. And you are also going to be on board as even we continue doing the policy. I'm sure even after we are done with the establishment of the rescue centers, there is a lot that will be needed. We'll need people to help us probably equip the facility, technical support, and so we have a lot that every one of us here can be able to support in one way or another. I wish to appreciate what has happened to us as a county, Midrift, and every one of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Selina. The next
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, as you've heard, my name is Judy Nyahira, an inspector of the Kenya Police Service, and I'm a proud beneficiary of a place-based leadership program that you've been told much about it. I undertook for 3 years, and I can attest that I'm never the same again. I will start by saying in the year 2016, I was posted to Nakuru Police Station Nakuru Division, that is Nakuru West, Kaptembo Police Station to be specific, from Baringo County. And to my surprise, I thought this would be a decent police station, modern, well constructed. And when I arrived, I was met by a station that was just a structure without a fence. I myself, I expected to have an office, being an inspector of police, where I would sit down and receive clients. But this was not the case. I was shown to sit under a tree. I was given a tree. That is where I would attend to my clients. And these clients are reports where I receive complaints of junior officers, how they have handled their work. This was so traumatizing for me. And I was like, how do they expect me to deliver? My police officers are not safe. Strangers will just intrude to the police station. Any person, animals, they will just get into the police station. And it was very difficult, very, very difficult. Then the gender office, it is an office where they handle very sensitive cases, cases of defilement, cases of rape cases, gender issues, violence, women receiving violence from their partners and vice versa. And apparently they too didn't have an office. They equally had an opposite tree where they would sit down and do their cases. You can imagine a survivor of violence, a defilement survivor, coming and sitting down and being attended to. There was no privacy, no confidentiality, and it was very hard for us. It was really tricky on our side. Reportees would never come to a station to report because they imagine if I'm seen under that tree, definitely other reportees who are coming to the station would attribute it that I've been violated. And things came in handy in the year 2016 when Midrift HURINET came with this program of place-based leadership development program. There were community policing members who were there. We used to work with these committees where they involve public partners. They come and work together. They give us information and we are able to collaborate. But they were not very effective. They were not very effective. Oh, sorry. They were not very effective because community policing is there, but it is not being a capacity builder. And so what happened with Midrift, they were able to train the leaders of this community policing, and when we worked together, we were able to engage the local leaders, both the state actors and the non-state actors. And you know what? Constituency Development Fund, and they were allocated with 5 million shillings to start with. And this one, we were able to do a perimeter wall. And my worry of strangers and animals getting into the police station was solved. That was the effort of collaborating, engaging the stakeholders, and we were able to do a perimeter wall. Now after the walling was done, we did have an office. And through the same engagement, the community policing members, with our support and the support of Midrift HURINET, they were able again to be allocated some funds. They engaged the same national government constitutional development committee, and more allocation of funds was done. And today we have a very beautiful police station, which we would invite you to come and visit. It is one of the best. And I'm proud to be seated in that office, even to serve clients at the comfort of an office and a desk, compared to those days when I would sit under a tree and serve my clients. So I'm so excited, and the same partnership, through the same collaboration, we've been able to engage the non-state actors, where they brought us a container, a decent container, and we were able to use it as a gender office. It is also a shelter that can be used to say once we rescue children who've been violated, children who are in need of care and protection, they can have a shelter before we arraign them before court. This is a success story And I'm so proud of Midrift, HURINET, and Dignity for supporting the process. And actually, I would wish the same can be replicated in other places because I'm sure they have either similar cases or even more worse scenarios. So thank you so much, and God bless HURINET.
Your own story. It might not be nice, but this one calls upon us. Is it possible for us to replicate this in Nairobi so that it becomes a national agenda? I've seen Bondo Kajumbi has come here. Bondo Kajumbi is from Kenya School of Government. Kenya School of Government. We want to have a conversation later. How practical can it be that these particular modules, there can be an uptake at the Kenya School of Government? Because you guys train civil servants. And if you can have a pool of civil servants, like Selena here, and Inspector Judy, being TOTs, it will cut a lot of costs, bringing people to KSG for training. And it will be a ripple effect. And this is the conversation we want to have as a country. Phil will tell you that such things, we don't start them at the center, because the center sometimes is very, very difficult. But we start from the periphery informing the center. And now we have seen it has worked. We are now planning to scale it up in Kisumu and Baringo. Now, I'm standing between you guys and 10 o'clock tea. I know time has really rushed. We are a human rights organization. We don't want to interfere with your appetite. Please let us have 10 o'clock tea, even if it's not 10. In fact, we can just pick it, then have it while continuing the conversation. Then after this, after you have picked your tea, I'll welcome Kawive to talk to us a little bit about state of leaders and leadership in Kenya today. Just a little bit to set us off so that we can start our first panel discussion. Karibuni chai. Mchukue chai, mkuje kwa meza zenu, tuendelee na mjadala. Asanteni. Karibuni, karibuni, karibuni. Let's take our chairs. Now the next speaker is Kawibe Wambua, currently at Inuka Nisisi Limited. He's going to take us through what is obtaining currently in terms of state of leaders and leadership in Kenya today. We have chosen Kawibe because between the year 2013 to 2017, Kawibe was the county executive committee member, equivalent to a minister, in Makueni County, in charge of devolution. All of us know that a lot of counties, both local and international, are benchmarking in Makueni in terms of devolution. Is it true? Correct. Now, this is the guy that put the infrastructure and the systems in place. So, a round of applause when Kawibe Wambua is coming here.
My table, because the guy sitting next there saying Mheshimiwa tuko hapa tuko na njaa. And that for me is the beginning of the discussion around leadership. So if you are a leader, you are called a Mheshimiwa, and therefore you become a what? No. You become a source of income. And that's the conception of leadership in this country. So if you are a leader and you cannot support, you cannot take care of the needs of the people around you, then what kind of a leader are you? And that is the problem that we have. I will assume that I have 5 minutes, like 10. So that then, because the question of leadership is something very huge, it's something that we need to discuss from different perspectives, but the perspective is one of just understanding where does leadership go. There's a book that I read which has got signs of where people go, referring to where is it that you, after doing the things that you do, where is it that you repose, where is it that you hide. And one of the intellectuals in Africa actually said about Nigeria is that the problem with Nigeria is, in the book called The Problem with Nigeria, is simply and squarely one of a failure of leadership. I don't know whether he was talking about Kenya, but I suspect that book is more relevant here than it was in Nigeria at the time. So I construe leadership in 4 forms. One, leadership of the stool, leadership, the titular kind of leadership. Leadership of the MP's office, leadership of the elders. You know, you are the titular, we can see you, you are the president, you are whatever. You have a role, you have a title. And so that's one. Number 2, leadership is wisdom. What is called thought leadership. 3, leadership is inspiration, where leaders are able to make people or inspire people to realize their full potential. And 4, leadership is a mechanism or a means for transformation and for change. Now, in those 4 instances, in this country, I can tell you without blinking that we have leadership of the stool and we have nothing else. There is no wisdom, there is no inspiration, there is no transformation. Let's start with transformation. Transformation from what to what? The architecture of the Kenyan state has been the colonial architecture, where the person who lords it over others is the one who eats, and everybody else works. That architecture is today. The reason why people wanted independence in this country was so that then you can control both the means of production and the produce, isn't it? But that never came to be. Actually, today we are worse off than we were in the 70s and 80s. Leadership as inspiration is about getting people to appreciate and to understand their rights, and also to participate in developing the produce, the national cake. Where, if you have, as an individual, where you have a responsibility to do certain things and a right to receive certain services. That does not happen in our country. And then the other one, as leadership, as wisdom, is where people are able, leaders are able to help us think through all aspects of the livelihood as citizens of our country. But I can tell you without blinking that there is no framework for national thought. There is no framework for wisdom. What we have are people who tell us what we think, what we are, and how, and what will happen to us, especially what will happen to us. Okay? So, and why am I saying this? I'm saying this because of 6 reasons. And the number one reason, which has been very popular in the last year or so, is the question of the existence of a deep state and when not to sit, and when to say what, and when not to say what. These are the people who make decisions behind the decision makers. Hello? How did we end up with a railway going to a farm? I mean, honestly, and it was launched, it was almost a national holiday. It was launched and it goes to a farm in the Rift Valley. A farm as in, if you get into a train, if there were trains, because they are not there, you get into a train and you go and drop it at the station, you will go nowhere. Because the road the meat was supposed to be there, is no longer there. How did we even do that? How did we, and these are mega government projects, how did we develop such infrastructure to ease the movement of cars along our roads? But we do not have sidewalks. Who benefits? The people who have cars. What do? They buy more cars. So everybody else who walks has nowhere to walk. So it's a question of not transporting people, but not even transporting goods and services, but isolating the people that are supposed to use those services. That's one of the reasons. So that the movers of capital and decisions, we don't know them, we don't see them. But the pronouncements and the decisions that are implemented are not in tandem with what we aspire as a nation. Right? Am I talking to myself? There are things that happen, we don't know why they're happening, and then we can't control, we can't stop them. The point number 2 is about the question of constitutional imperatives. We did a constitution after very many years, 26 years to be precise, on the road, saying from Joya's pronouncement in 1995 about that we needed to renegotiate this country. And through the killings, through the fight in the late 80s, 1995 would be the year of the new constitution. 1995. And that year, in preparation of the same, Tom Kaga knows this, foresees and whoever developed Mwongozo wa Katiba Mpya, the model constitution for Kenya in 1995, which became ENCC. Anyway, after the long fight up to 2010, we got a new constitution. And in that constitution, there are 3 things that stand out for me. Number 1 is rights and responsibilities of citizens. Number 2 is integrity, especially of leadership. And number 3 is the devolution of power. If those 3 things are implemented in the way that they are anticipated, or in the way that they are conceptualized in the Constitution, we would actually have got a very firm basis to discuss leadership. Look at what Selena has done in Nakuru on a simple, singular issue, just one to the end. Okay? Because there's an opportunity in the county government. What's happening now with county governments? They're not receiving funds. They're not receiving funds. That's why governors are falling over one another to host BBI rallies. Because if you don't host, somehow technically the funds may not be available. I mean, I work in county government, so I know. The things that were involved were never funded. If you've done budget fiscal monitoring in this country, we realize that the equalization fund, the one that was supposed to be given to counties that were systematically marginalized, in the past regimes, they have never received funds. They have never been released. Yeah? Look at the whole question of the youth bank. And the gentleman who has come in is the PS, I guess? No? CAS for youth, and they will tell us something about that. The youth band, who is thinking about it? What's happening to our young people? The question of integrity. How did we get leaders that we have today? I mean, people that even they are professionals from the people who elected them. These people are rogues, they are thieves. The people who elected them confess to us because we don't know them. So you get confession that you ask, how did we get here? What happened to integrity? Are we going to see the right to food, the right to education, the right to health realized? When health is a remote function and all the money is left at the national level, when today the national government pays the dispensary overheads directly. Did you know that? If you are a dispensary in your local area, the money for overheads of that dispensary are paid directly from the national government. They have never been reported to the counties. 8 years into devolution. You know, these are realities that we have to grapple with. That was the second reason. The third reason is a question of the repeated question of electoral injustice that have been talked about. 2013, 2017. There have been elections, they have been contested, there has been no proper adjudication of the contestation. And so you end up with half of the population of this country feeling that you've been shortchanged. And that feeling does not go away. Big problems have not been addressed. Right now, I can tell you for free that nobody, there is no political divide. What is it now? In the political environment, I wanted to say political divide, and then I corrected. I self-corrected. Nobody is thinking about reforming the IEBC. Why? Because a reformed IEBC would be problematic in 2022. What would constitute a reformed IEBC? And it's not new commissioners. Today, 3 years after the contested elections, and there was only one question: open up the servers. Let us see what happens. They have not been opened. For the last 2 years, nobody has talked about the servers. Nobody. Civil society, nobody. I don't even know why I'm talking about it. Because you're not supposed to talk about them. I mean, you lack leadership. If you talk about past things, okay? And then, reason number 3, I'm counting backwards. Reason number 4 is the question of the lost wealth. The president is on record some time ago, I don't know when, he was asking, why are Kenyans broke? I mean, for you as a president to ask that, it means, because a president cannot be broke, so he cannot know. When you are not broke, you cannot know when people are broke, isn't it? So for it to have gotten to the president, it must be really bad. I mean, for people who have gone up to the president knowing that people are broke, it must be really true that people are broke. Are we generating wealth? Are we consuming wealth? Where's our money going? How much are we paying for our foreign debts? The other day I saw a clip by one of the people we call our leaders, saying that there is no money for development. And I'm like, is he bad-mouthing the government? Why? He's a leader. I mean, in our conception of leaders, why is he bad-mouthing the government? And then, so I asked you the question, is there money for development in the areas where you are? Why did civil society people working to the conversations between citizens and government have to help build a police station. I mean, if you look at that, isn't it unacceptable? Why is it that that can be necessary? You know, in the past, when we had missionary hospitals, we had all these other platforms. I'd finish in a minute. So this is a direct threat. So I'm not talking about the government. So if you get to the point where citizens have to be creative and officers have to be creative to say, we have been given this work, we work with what we have, we mobilize resources ourselves and build a station. When it is creative, number two, it solves a problem. But number three, the biggest problem is that the government did not plan for the security of the people. They did not plan. Okay? Then point number 5 is about the political organizing quagmire that we are in. That we are talking about leadership, and yet the process by which leaders are gotten, the legal process by which leaders are gotten, cannot serve to create or to propagate the kind of leaders that we want. Why? One, we have no political parties in this country. And I can say that without blinking. Now, if you think ODM, PNU, or whoever political parties, go and think again. The only political party that has ever existed in this country is KANU. Let me tell you why. KANU had sublocation elections, very fiercely contested elections. And there was structures from the ground up. Doesn't matter what the objective was. No. The organizing, the framework was there. Today, we do not have political organizing in this country. And then the second thing is that these people who go into political parties are held captive. You go into WIPA, do what Kalonzo says, or you will earn. ODM, the same thing. Jubilee, the same thing. So the form of organizing is around an individual, it's around a clique of people who make decisions within the party. So it doesn't matter whether you are a card-carrying member or you have been voted in by people and all that. No, what matters is your allegiance to the leader of the outfit. I don't want to call it a party. So even if we go to 2022, my friend, to try to get leaders, we are wasting time. We get to 2022, we elect people. Don't kill yourself thinking about them as the ideal leaders that you want. Think about them as a new group of eaters. That way you will not get answers. Okay? But if you think of them as leaders who need to deliver this development program, this, you'll get answers and you'll die before your time. And the last one is about, I cannot resist this, the BBI. You know, I've asked people, this BBI, what is this BBI? Because honestly, personally, I don't know what it is. And I have been told very, very times that I'm asking the wrong question. Why? Because BBI is a platform for national conversation. We are going to discuss how to deliver this country from what? What is the problem in this country? We are having a national conversation on how to rethink and remake this country. And I ask, how? Is there a law? Is it within the constitution? Is it anticipated? Kenyans we are fighting. Which Kenyans we are fighting? What were they fighting over? Those hard questions have not been asked. And therefore today, as we speak, we are in a conundrum. We are in you can imagine a pipe here, a pipe originating from here. A lot of us get in and we will alight at Uhuru Park. Uhuru Park is this direction, right? That pipe goes up to Uhuru Park. That is where we will end up. Why? Because nobody has critiqued. Actually, it's even anathemical to critique the BBI. Why? Because everybody wants to think about it. Everybody wants to go and have a discussion about what we had a discussion for 6 years. We have a constitution, we have a framework. Why can't we implement the integrity? Why can't we implement the devolution as it is anticipated? Why can't we implement the question of rights as it is identified in the constitution? Why can't we implement the questions of political representation as they are anticipated? Why can't we implement the financial management system as it is anticipated in chapter 13? Yeah? Or is it 12? Why can't these things be in place? Why, for example, do we have a judiciary without money? There was a case sitting in Mombasa the other day. The judges, a five-judge bench had been constituted. But they could not sit because they could not travel and be hosted. Look, right now, the Court of Appeal has 8 sittings across the country, various sittings. It is no longer sitting. All those judges have been called back to Nairobi. Let us be real. Let us agree that we have a problem with leadership. We have a framework. That framework is not BBI. That framework is the Constitution. And BBI is seeking to change the Constitution. Okay. Some of the spin-off results, and now this is my last 1 minute, some of the spin-off results of the lack of leadership is violence. And I'm glad this program has been able to think about that. And violence is in 2 levels. Intrasocial violence, which is caused by depravity. A man cannot provide for his family. He goes home, he's asked about food. Now, when you are fighting because you have been asked for food, and tomorrow you are arrested and taken to the police station, you know what you are doing? You want to be removed from the equation of food. Honestly. Because you know that if you beat your wife or you beat your children, you will be arrested. Because we are that open now on the side, isn't it? When you are arrested, what has happened? You have been removed from the equation of being asked for food. Social depravity. Sasa unaweza kurudisha chakula kwa jana. Then the other one is violence as a form of creating passivity. That young people who do not have jobs want jobs, and therefore, when they are in the informal settlements and they don't have jobs, they are idling. They look for places where to sit and discuss. People are planning a crime. And so what do? Kill them. And in this town, our town called Nairobi, there are people who advertise themselves on even social media. Police officers who are experts on their own. Rashid of Isili and Mathare. He has been killing young people for more than 4 years. And he has never been arrested. And it is known. And it is everywhere. But he has never been arrested. So I keep on wondering, is he a maverick? Is he like Robin Hood? Robin Hood used to kill, to steal from the rich and distribute to the poor. But this guy kills the poor. There's another guy called Esiwa Dadora. Yeah? And they are known. They kill people and they give examples of how they are going to kill. But we are so busy going on with our normal business and following our leaders. All of you are glued to your TVs watching news. And I stopped watching news in 2008 after the violence because that was personal, because there was a gruesome coverage of the violence that time. And I felt that this was not what I wanted to see on TV. So I became averse to watching news. But we watch news and clap. You know, do our leaders in Kitui send Moses Kuria out, how in Narok now. You know, there's a national conversation happening to us and around us, which we are not part of. And that, to me, is the fact that we lack leadership in this country. Leadership at the level of ideas, leadership at the level of inspiration, leadership at the level of getting us as a country together. But everywhere there are leaders. Even me, I'm a leader in my house.
Thank you, CS, for joining us. Asante sana. No, you had a very busy schedule. Karibu sana. Now, I'll call the first panel to join us. Tom Kabwe, former board member, IPOA. Mr. Kiprono Langat from the National Police Service. Caleb Wanga from Usalama Reform. Musila. The panel will need a mic. I don't know if there's a mic that's not being used. The presentations were being made. You can give general comments about what you have heard or seen so far. Then you can proceed from there.
So introduce yourself.
There are new people who have come.
Okay. My name is Jessica Musila. I am coming to you from Ethical Leadership Network, and I used to be the former ED in Zalendo.
Good afternoon. I'm still Caleb Wanta from Salama Reform Forum.
Okay, my name is Kiprono Langat from the National Police Service.
Tom Kalu is sufficient.
Mike.
We'll take only 1 minute maximum. I'll start from about leadership, which is really brilliant from him. After leading his organization for about 2 years, plus 2 elected by members to serve in CRECO as chair. As a commissioner in IPOA, and I did not agree most of the time with them, and I did agree with the commander-in-chief, who is Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, about how to tackle urban violence. She's a great lady, a PhD holder from Oxford University, I believe, or Cambridge. She's a great lady who I taught and mentored to become a better person, who has written enough on this issue. A student also, because I think Kariba unleashed 2 things about violence: intrasocial violence, and the other one I can call extrasocial violence. Let's debate these matters. Thank you.
moderate this first panel. Karibu.
I'm going to be here with you so that we can all share together our contributions towards a safer environment for Kenya, for Kenyans, and all those friends who normally visit Kenya. Security is a collective responsibility, and it starts from each and every individual in the room and out there in the countryside. The police officer's role is limited only to come in as a technical expert on matters which have gone overboard. However, we are calling upon all Kenyans to ensure that they check security the way they check their family, their health, and anything else. Start with them. That is why we are, as a nation, as a service, we are now coming very strongly on matters community policing, so that we can engage all the stakeholders, so that we can all deliver this security program. Thank you.
Because they had started, let me just go. Okay. Good afternoon. Yes, as a community safety practitioner, and I'm always proud to see Obondo Kajumbi seated in our midst because he's one of the libraries in terms of community safety and public administration in this country. Yes, it's a great moment for us together this afternoon to share ideas because issues of urban violence is very, very key, and I'm happy that the government is represented here. Yeah, because these are some of the challenges that we face and how it is related to exercise of power. I was told that there is no point of having power that you cannot abuse. That is what a politician told me. If you have power that you can't abuse, then there is no point of having that power. And probably the chief administrative secretary will share with us the sweetness of power. And I can see he's still a young man. Probably he will be able to inspire other people how we can responsibly manage power, because most of the challenges we have in the urban, in terms of urban security, is related to power play within the communities, power play within the security agencies, and other actors broadly. So I hope at the end of the day we'll be able to share some ideas, so we'll know whether we can abuse power or use it responsibly. Thank you and welcome.
A vital conversation, and thank you to Midrift for getting us started. You know, violence is pervasive throughout the communities, and not just Nakuru. Yes, Nakuru is the heartbeat of where Kenyan politics. You know, if you want to know where Kenya is going, check what happens in Nakuru, because everything historically that is defined as an organization and as a country has happened in Nakuru first. And so even as we have this conversation, I would say, you know, the pessimist complains about the wind, the optimist expects it to change, the leader adjusts the sails. That is a quote from John Maxwell. And I can say, unfortunately, our leaders are not adjusted the sails. We got, you know, they got an extractive state, and they continued it from the beginning. And even now, even the systems of security are still beholden to the powers that be rather than the people. And with that at the core of the conversation, then if you don't address that infrastructure and system, then we are not going to be able to resolve this issue adequately. And some of the things, you know, they, instead of showing us the way forward, and trying to see what could have changed about our cultures. For example, about the question about women and violence against women, they continue perpetrating it using the systems of state. And so if we are going to have any change, then let's be honest about where the root causes of these issues are. Thank you.
You are getting into the debate now. I know this is where you're trying, and some proactive disclosure. I know this man for a few years. I know as in I've worked with him. And the way I want to do it is like this. Yes, Mike. This one? Both of them? Which is not one? Is it now fine? I thought it was my voice. You know, I'm a soft-spoken gentleman. I'm even in Poland. So, yeah, I like some of the characters. I like some of the characters in the panel. However, I used to, you know, some of these guys talk for a living. And preachers and so on. And politicians. They can talk and talk and talk. That's why you had somebody say that they are going to take 5 minutes, but they talked for so long. Thank you very much for being here. We'll do it like this. I will ask them, at least we've had their voices. That was the objective of the session just passed. And now I'll ask them some leading questions, which they will answer, one question each. And then after that, we're going to have an opportunity where everybody else can jump into the mix. We'll open it up so that you're not just coming here to listen. We want you to feel that at least get some value for your time. And we start with my friend Tom. Tom, you've mentioned IPOA. The question is, I want you to very briefly tell us if you remember a specific experience where you wished you or IPOA had done something differently, and if you had to do it over, what would you change? I think I'll just, you can just answer from the comfort. I know whoever is this week, please answer from the comfort. You want to start? For the benefit of...
All right, you're welcome. Here?
IPOA was created in my office. Kenya Human Rights Commission. I was the deputy director of Kenya Human Rights Commission. Police have beaten me up as a person in these lands. Those who come from these lands understand the language of being beaten up. I know there are police officers present in this meeting. I decided as a person to pursue them to the deepest hole possible. When I developed the concept, I was the chair of CRECO, where Kawigo came from, and I know they are members of CRECO, Constitution and from Education Consulting. There is nothing different I would do. I went to Parliament. I wrote a bill with my friend Johnson Okello to create an institution that can beat up police. It's personal. I've never said this in a forum. It's personal. They beat me up because of expressing myself. I come from a football training field and they beat me up. I'm running home to watch Serie A on Friday. It started at 7:10. 19:10 in the morning, in the evening. Then I'm being beaten up by police for doing nothing other than running. It is personal. Let me disclose that for the first time to the nation after I have retired. Second point, very clear to me. I met a very good gentleman. His name is Mashayan Jill. I told him the story of my being beaten up by police. his father was a police officer. Myself, I had several uncles as police officers. Then we met in Ransley Task Force, Philip Ransley Task Force, which was trying to deal with the police. I told him, I've created an institution where these guys, we have to jail them. Third point, very fast. When I left office, there were 12 police officers jailed and about 98 to 107 in the court process to be jailed. Because, fourth point, I studied a lot from the independent police, independent investigative police authority in South Africa and England, Northern Ireland. My neighbor is from Northern Ireland, so I asked him about to open Office of the Police Ombudsman for Northern Ireland. He's my neighbor. On my computer, which is there. Fifth point, and very brief. Police are people. Why they behave as inhuman, I have never understood. On December 29, 2002, after electing Mwai Kibaki as president, this is where the idea came from. Police beat me up in this town for celebrating Kibaki, that he has won. I've never elected Kibaki ever in my life. But we defeated KANU, Kenya African National Union. And then they beat me up. So, final point, so that I see it, maybe questions will arise from there. Police behave differently. I live right now in Redley, very big mansion, regardless of how I'm married. But police in Madari, where I've taught very many children, they beat up people seriously. But in Montaiga, they don't. The only place I've seen police beat up people is Jimmy's residence, 042. I live around there. But they can't touch people who are rich. So we have to agree that urban violence is controlled, especially when you come from a rich neighborhood. The guys seated on this reserved table, they understand what I'm talking about, because essentially, police will never come to your houses. But they will come to the house of Emma and everybody else inside here, other than you. I want everybody to live in peace, regardless of social standing or social status, according to Article 27, 238, and Article 41, and other articles which we drafted in the Constitution, that everybody is protected, fundamental freedoms and human rights.
Thank you very much, Tom. He's usually like that. It's not that he's any different. And he knows the Constitution front to back because he participated in the making of that Constitution, so he knows it clause by clause, comma by comma. He used to have a very big truck before he bought a Mercedes. And the back of the truck was filled with manuscripts of the Constitution. That's so I told you, I know him. Active disclosure. Now, the next question is only fair that I don't know whether you're sitting like that by design or by default next to Guanarangel. But Guanarangel, continuing from where Thomas left it, I would like you to tell us what you are about this community policing and police reform. What are you most tired of hearing on that subject? And what would you like to tell us right now? give an answer once and for all, so that you never have to answer about that again. One thing that you hear over and over again, and now you're tired, you want to say it, and say it once and for all, so that everybody forever keeps their peace. Please. Would you, if you're comfortable there, it's okay.
Again for this opportunity. First, before I answer the question posed to me, I'd like to thank Bwana Chokagwe for nominating me to be the best community policing officer of the year 2014. Station Madini. So things change. And he was new in the office by then. We might not have met, and we didn't know them, they didn't know us. But when they came on the ground, they found that community policing was thriving in that particular part of the country, among other areas. So what we are grappling with as a service is the question of ethics. And if you look at the Inspector of Police from time to time taking action and doing all these things, if you look at the IPOA coming on air, if you look at National Police Service coming on air, all of us are working towards having an ethical police service. And what we have agreed as a service is to get a vehicle which is going to move us to the next level. And this vehicle is community policing. Because over the years, there's been a very big rift between public officers and the communities. Not police alone, all other government agencies. Because of the nature of the environment. So I wanted to add value to what Kawita said about the environment. So what we are now doing is we want to embrace community policing, to have members of the community and the police officers on the same table discussing one common thing. And I'm sure if we put a lot of effort on that one, this issue on ethical leadership and ethical practices will be a thing of the past. But if you choose the other way, then now we'll not end the debate. We'll also come here in the future to discuss it. So what we are now saying is community policing is bringing those people here, and if I'm being unethical, I'll be told on the table. And if I'm not changing, then the community members will be able to ensure that I'm shipped out of the service. So the closer the combatants, the sooner the fight. Oh, does it make sense? Yeah. People cannot fight at a distance. So we need to bring it closer here so that we can now be able to tackle this problem at that proximity and ensure that we close it. Now, you had a question on community policing, and with the help of our partners, Midrift, the NIDA, we piloted in 6 counties. Out of these 6 counties, like those figures, Nakuru stands out as one of the best outfits among the rest. We owe this to the officers we trained, and we said, based on the race-based leadership model, we didn't train the top officers, so we went out to train young officers and the community simultaneously. They had a joint action plan, which has really propelled Nakuru to be able to achieve the things they've achieved so far, and to be peaceful over the 2 election year periods. So that is what we've achieved. So it's about coming together.
That's very interesting. You know, the first time we told the police we want to train police officers, they told us, no, you are civilians, you cannot train police officers. Police officers are trained in Kiranjo, professional. You cannot train them. So we had to change the language. Luckily, some of us were taught English by good teachers and knew English, so we said they want training using different words, and they were very happy. They came on board. And thank you, Mr. Lagarde, because you facilitated the process. And what is describing is actually what we did. Because remember the first instances when we brought Ben and Judy together. At first, Ben did not know that Judy was a police officer. And when he got to know that, because a few weeks earlier, he had participated in a demonstration, and they could not imagine being in the same room together. And actually, one of the comments we took from that meeting was a police officer saying that she did not think, it was not Judy, another one, that she did not think she could spend a day in a room with the civil society guys who are always on the street talking about Hakietu. Hakietu is our right, demonstrating. So the police officer never thought that they could stay in the same room with these guys who are always demonstrating. But by the end of it all, they started working about collective action. Collective action for collective outcomes. Anyway, Caleb, developing along the same line. I would like, you have had Dr. Laura put the place-based leadership very well. Even if you've never gone through it before, you now have an idea of what it is. At least we've been on the inside. But we would like you to just give us a snippet of what you think would be the biggest challenge to bringing these people together, different sectors coming to work together in terms of urban violence prevention. And I know you have some experience in these matters, having worked in some of the hotspots that Tom has highlighted as being where the relationship between the people and the police is the other way around. Please.
Okay. Yeah, because now everybody is standing, I also have just to stand. Okay, thank you so much for this. And I'm always happy to hear Tom talking, because Tom is one of my teachers in the civil society when I just walked in. And as a civil society actor, I'm always happy to see police engaging in this kind of interactions, because as Tom said, it is always very difficult to begin engaging with police, you know, because there was a nature of how police are trained, and we are always happy that things have gradually changed. You talked about, asking about challenges. Probably I can go back a bit and use a political word called democracy. And democracy, I think, is an English word that was primarily imported from the West. But there is a new word called Afrimocracy. Yes, you can learn, because English was not only made in England, part of the English can be made also here. Afrimocracy is the concept of democracy based on African context. Yeah? You know, most of the challenges we have is simply because we think sometimes on a straight line. Probably what we are taught about what democracy is all about is step 1, step 2, step 3. But most of the challenges we have even in dealing with the urban violence is failure to take into context, taking the local context into this kind of engagement. And that worked well. I was listening to Dr. Laura Knight. You know Laura Knight in our language we call that Tienmo. Yeah. The place-based, I know you are wondering, actually it's a lab one at night. Yeah. The place-based leadership. As Salama, for sake of you guys, we tried doing this, I think, in the year 2011, 2012. We were working closely with several police stations around the country to get the local context, the crime trends in particular areas, and we called it Crime Observatory. And because we did not want to walk into communities with our minds that these are the problems, we wanted to get the ideas from the local communities of what they consider as crime. Because you might think something is a crime. It is a crime, but within that community it's not a crime. So you must always design how to respond to issues. So this came with the statement in the program called collective action for collective impact. How do you get the collective impact? And one, that's why you need to understand the challenges a particular society or a particular community is facing. And I remember we did some social audit, safety audit, where we developed tools to gather information from different sectors, and then we used it to develop a community safety plan. You can only develop a community safety plan when you fully engage the community. And we are always happy that Kenya School of Government and the World Bank picked this idea, and we have been gladly part of the crime series trainings headed by Mr. Ubondo Kajumbi and the World Bank team. So, for you to have a collective impact, you must just use the right steps. Part of the right steps that we questioned that police almost threw out of the process when the community policing was initiated in the country. Initially it was created without laws until the new constitution came. Then the national thing, and it's good that it's being piloted so that it does not fail like the first phase, how the first phase failed, purely because there was lack of laws. And then part of the challenges that we have sometimes in developing safety, urban crime violence processes, shrinking economic space, mostly for young people. And then we have a society that the way Tom said that police could come to Bavaria and beat and kill people, but they never go to where he stayed. We are in a society which judges people. Because you are poor, you are a potential criminal. I'm very sure if CAS, Mr. Kenobian, if Mr. Kenobian was not a CAS, there are certain areas he passes through, he will be arrested purely because he's a young man. Yeah, you judge people. And these are part of the challenges in building community safety programs in our society. And we are happy, and I would request the dignity, the Danish Embassy, I saw the Danish Embassy, to continue supporting this initiative even for the next 10 years, so that we can capture even half of these countries effectively. You remember when we talked about setting county policing authority for Nakago? Because there is no critical support, some of these beautiful ideas remain kept somewhere. They are not being implemented. Probably if the dignity and the Danish Embassy and other actors will continue supporting the Midrift and other actors, we will be able to move to the next steps to deal with some of these challenges. I know you
I don't have favorites. As I told you, proactive disclosure, I know Tom, but it's just because you start like that. And again, it's not because, but anyway. Rather than the same way. Jessica, from what we've had and what has been presented, and it's good that you're coming up as last presenter in this session. I would like you to give us the way forward in terms of what these gentlemen have said, what they have presented, getting from Tom, what do you think would be the way forward? And bearing in mind that in all these programs, what we need is people coming from different sectors, working together for what you have to decide, collective action or collective impact. Where do we, how do you see it? So what do we do very quickly before we now turn to these ladies and gentlemen and hear what they have for you guys? Please.
I want to continue from where Kawibe left about integrity and the challenge we have as a country. Because, the police are always the top institution in matters corruption in this country.
all the indexes, there always is at the top. And so, you know, there are always two parties to a corruption, to a corrupt whatever incident. And so we need to interrogate ourselves as a community. Historically, I have roots in the Red Cross movements, and that's the first time when I dealt with the police. And it was interesting because on the road, the police really loved to intimidate. But then I had the privilege of, courtesy of my work, to go to Kiganjo and actually train them, even GSU. And I would see them change in terms of ethics, how they related with us, because they would interact with us a lot in the places where there was conflict in the country. And of course, when they would see the Red Cross cars, they would be very different. And so that the idea that they can follow ethics is actually possible. It's just that what they were saying about what happens when they don't know your class or your space, it becomes that we are all not equal. Yeah? And it's sad. It's sad because then in the Christian circles, Ethical Leadership Network is a faith-based initiative rooted in the church. And in our engagement with others, it was very interesting because whenever we have reached out to the government infrastructure, you find that yes, there are all those guidelines already written into the Constitution and mwongozo of how people should relate with the public, but nobody follows this just because the top is rotten. And because the top says one thing but does not live by the law, rule of law, it is pervasive now that the system thinks that, we only do what the top does. And the police, as a consequence, follows only what they see the top do, and because they are being seen as a channel for doing the loading on the people, that is what has prevailed. And it's interesting whenever, just talking about collective action, the thing I've loved about the training so far is that the collective action, collective impact is rooted in who we are as a people. What were we doing? I'm just wondering, I found myself thinking about the curriculum. Did we get to interrogate what is from our cultures about how we used to police one another? How did we check ourselves before the formal systems came into place within the tribes? And is there any part of that that was co-opted into the process? And so if we are going to be doing something about this, then we need the place of faith-based movements, the place of thinking back to what was ours culturally as a way of also resolving disputes is important, so that the people do not see it as something that is parachuted in, but see it as something that is surfacing from the ground up. And going forward also, the idea of ethics. We all have to make a commitment to rule of law. I know Tony, in fact, when I joined the civil society movement, the first person who's reading the red was Tom Kagwe. So I'm honored to be on the same panel with him today. And the rule of law, the school system, that we lost a sense of shame as a people. We need to figure out how to bring back the idea of shame, that it's okay if you do something wrong, that people will be able to shame you. Like when I was talking about peers holding you to account, I don't know whether, even if it happens among the police, but if your top boss is saying one thing or the other, is it going to stay? The only challenge that I had today when you were saying that you want to multiply this across the country, there's a danger of piloticis in the sector. And so you find a lot of people will say, just because it worked in one police station, it should work everywhere. No, I would say go ahead and go deep, in Nakuru, so that, because now you already have the system ready to embrace this and push. For me, I will tell you, don't use the leader resources. Ask the Ministry of Interior as one of the ministries that actually has a lot of our budget, together with defense, and to actually allocate budget for the police to institute this. Then in addition, we need to make sure that going forward, we actually start paying our taxes work for us. not a case of where we are actually always asking people to go out there and bring their money. You know, sometimes when I go to the West and I see how their police works, it remembers that it works for the people. So we need to make sure the Ministry of Interior takes police matters as priority, and one of it is also making sure that all the police stations are actually built, you know, stop being like places where you're putting these people, you're not celebrating their human dignity. You know, every time I go to a police station, I get very young. I'm like, if this is my office every day, how am I expected to treat other people like human dignity? And so I would want to see the police stations built like institutions that are taking care of majority of the population. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we've got part of the government here. The message is going to get home. By the way, do these police officers ever do anything good? Because a lot of the times you hear a lot of bad things. You know, it's like a case of I'm not a preacher. Who know me know I am the farthest thing you can be from a preacher. But there is a story in the Bible, I forget where it was, where somebody was pleading with God and asking if there is only one good person. And we also mentioned it in our presentations. Because they are not all bad. They are not all. The police officers who are here know that, of course, there is a lot of things. You are the insiders. We are looking from you from outside. But don't feel too vilified. Because we know that there are some good things that are done. And then I always say that policing is too important to be left to the police alone. Right? We all need to have a stake. And that is why Tom Kagwe and his colleagues, when we were doing whatever the motive, Tom, I do. Opsa. Yeah, you gave him an award. So you found a good one. And we say that it is very dangerous when you have somebody who doesn't know and they don't know that they don't know. So sometimes let us not be the police officers who are here know that we are being our brother's keeper. So we are telling you, not away from the panel, but at least to have a say. Have a say in the sense that those of you who are seated in the audience, I think I'll allow for a few questions or suggestions to the panel or something you wish to hear clarified. Because we are a bit pressed for time, and we have a longer period. But just a few things that Reverend. Number one. I wonder how many? Around four. Four would be okay. So, Reverend from the police. Number two. Calvin. Yes. All right. 3. And if you don't speak now, forever keep you silent. Number 3. And the last one. I'm very optimistically looking towards this side. Ben, you have something. You look like you have one. Oh, yeah. No. We'll give it time. All right, those 3 will suffice. So, can we have a microphone delivered to you? And remember, KISS. If it's shorter.
Good afternoon one more time, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I believe.
We can hear you.
Yes, I'm audible enough, I believe so.
No, they are saying on the other side. No. All right. Is that
Yes, am I now audible to everyone?
Yes.
Yes, just as you say, I'm Reverend Hillary. I'm in the National Police Service. I'm a born-again police officer to contribute on the issue of police behavior and character and security at large. I want us to move to the place as Kenyans and even our stakeholders who are coming in to, just help us in our policing to the point of debunking the notion that the entire police is rotten. And I'll start by saying that the fact that there is fake is a clear indication that already exists. So, Mr. Kagwe, you are seriously beaten, but there are those who are good. There are those who are good, and we really appreciate even the era that we are in. Before the year 2002, when the man that he was celebrating won and a victory and became the president, you could not stand and talk about the police in a public place like this. You could never see a case of the public arresting a traffic police officer. And that tells us that as a nation, we've made a milestone. We've gone steps ahead. Where we are currently, that the police are able to be policed, is an appreciable fact that indeed we are moving towards the right direction. And as the police, something is indeed happening. We are doing things at our capacities. Personally, as a small police officer, I couldn't even get an opportunity to speak where my seniors are, like he is, and several of us here are who are more senior to me. You couldn't even get that forum to air yourself. But we are moving towards that era where everybody's independent views could be, taken, and we work together as we bring in community policing, as we work together, as we bring in, a multi-sectoral approach towards policing, where we are helped. Last week we were in a conference and we were doing a validation of a training that had been done by an NGO called the Green Sticks Movement. And we were realizing that some of the factors that make police behave the way that they do, that make us, hate them, are environmental. There are several factors to what they are. These people are human, but you see, they are expected to behave as though they are, super people, that as though they are superhuman. When these people have got a mental faculty, they have got, they are exposed to the various factors that we, as the civilians in this nation, are also, exposed to, and some of these things, strain them, and those are the things that lead, of course, to things like suicide, things like, police being trigger happy and such like things. And we are working currently on, dealing with the police behavior, talking to police, and working on how they behave, behavioral change, and things like counseling, things like therapies and things of the sort, so that we work towards being an internationally accredited police
service.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
You remember what I said about pictures and a preacher from the police service. Thank you very much. Please. All right. Please.
I'm still number 3.
Okay.
Thank you. My name is Kajumbi and I'm from the Kenya School of Government. I've looked at
Kajumbi.
Kajumbi, yes. I have looked at and we are kind of centered on police as if they are the major contributors of violence in the country. Police are just but part of the actors in the whole equation. I think if you want to address the issue of violence, you must put the risk factors that promote violence. Do they give room for the breeding? We need to address issues of marginalization. We used to address issues of parenting. We need to address issues of how the society looks at the whole thing.
Good afternoon. My name is Calvin from Midrift. We are very sorry, Tom, for what you went through. It's not a reputation. For what you went through. And what I've actually gone through myself is actually less than what you went through. Because the only thing I think I've received is the tear gas from the police when we decided to chain Parliament, because they wanted to increase their salaries. And that is exactly what pushed you now to begin thinking about issues of coming up with IPOA. My question would be 2 questions. One, what did you want to cure from that particular time when you decided now to come up with IPOA? What did you want to cure, and has it been cured? The second question would be the objectives you came up with. All the objectives you envisaged during that particular time, do they still stand today?
Thank you very much. Because those were pretty much the only three questions. Tom, you seem to have the plan of it, and maybe give you the chance. Please.
First, let me confess I'm gray hair. It's only my daughter who puts dye on my hair. I think I've lived long. My colleagues are here. Remember? You understand? From Kenya Human Rights Commission, Oxford University, and Linian Kantai. I was asked to cure the problem of policing by my boss, who was Steve Ouma. So I asked him for 2 weeks leave. And I think I cured the problem. Number one, what cure was I envisaging? From 1892 to date, no police officer has been taken to jail for violations of human rights and social justice. I've taken 12. 98 plus are in the court process. So I think somewhat I've helped this nation to heal its wounds, courtesy of the 1997 violence, 2003 violence, which was not much. Kibaki was elected, I celebrated, I was beaten up, but it doesn't matter. 2017, Uhuru's election was cancelled because of the violence he committed. And I come from Gatundu, for those who are in doubt of where I come from. So the cure is very simple. Some police must go to jail. Others must be taken through a court process to answer accountability questions of killing people, like women and children in Madai. The first case I dealt with was Perry's confidential advice. The one which is public is this one. I told him, finance like estate, violence, socialization, marginalization. Who told you that the Kenyans seated here are not socialized, are not marginalized? I've lived in every county in Kenya, other than two, Mandera and Marsabit. I've lived at least for a week. I know what it means to suffer. So my final submission is very clear. We never wanted to punish police. Police wanted to be punished. I know he's been part of the Red Cross. In my 6 years as a commissioner in Nepal, I never wanted to whitewash against people of the Republic of Kenya, and I never wanted to withstand anyone, regardless of what I went through in these lands. And I continue going through. When police stop me I'm driving my car and then police stop me for very flimsy reasons. So the question is this one. I need my time. IPOA stands very strong. To date, other than some few things which are still happening, I have intelligence on what is going on. So when they settle down, everything will be fine. But police should always respect the law and order which they practice and arrest us anytime they want. Now, it's a question of leadership of the police. On my last day in office, May 21st, 2018, I was invited to KTN, broadcasted live on national television, including Kenya, the rest everyone. But because I chose to divide myself between being a civilian and being very objective in my questions, and that guided me. I'm a Christian. I will never witch hunt or whitewash anything. Kama ni kushika mtu na kuachilia